Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Sessions. My name is Alex. It's a pleasure to connect with you again in our third episode here in the new season 5 of the podcast. It's my favorite time in the month when I welcome amazing guests for rich conversation. Since our previous episode was all about the art of slowing down, and essentially the entire vibe for January's topics have been centered on slow and graceful self care, I have invited a dear, dear friend, teacher, medicine woman, and just all around heart loving badass, Cindy Stockdale, to speak on slowing down long enough to begin the process of observing what comes up. We also talk about what it means to question our truths, our values, and our family stories, as well as how powerful and unraveling meditation can be. Cindy has been a guest on Soul Sessions in the past. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome her back. She is a certified quantum life coach with degrees in psychology and archaeology. She has been teaching yoga, studying mountain shamanism, and the energetic healing arts for over 20 years and has been an intuitive end channel her entire life. I will share her entire bio in the description of this episode, as well as contact information and where you can connect with Cindy. Without further ado, let's get into it. Yeah. So the art of slowing down. What's your take?
I love it. I think going into Christmas, like I've been so busy. I've got like kids playing. I mean, we had 2 kids, 3 sports, full-time jobs, like just going beyond capacity. And kind of crashed and burned into Christmas. And really got an opportunity to deep rest. To some degree, it's Christmas,
Yes.
But it became so apparent to me that, and this happens every time I like get a break or, usually when I go away, like usually when I remove myself from my home, but when I slow down, all of a sudden this like, there's an opening in the body. And when your mind's not so congested, I think about like this, like just like the flow of grace or whatever we want to call it, it opens up and then you're just like able to be so much more creative and aligned and at peace. And every time I have the same conversation with myself, how do I get myself into trouble? Because this is a cycle, right? And I think, I think the thing is that, first of all, it's okay that it's a cycle. And to not kind of, there's a tendency to like want to punish ourselves when we don't get it right the next time. But I think just part of it is that we're accepting this ebb and flow, this pulsation in life. In Sanskrit, it's called spanda, which I really like. And you think about like the spiral, Yeah. But there's so much, my mind just went to like teaching yoga at the beginning of class and just having everybody sit. And sometimes you sit and your brain's like, I hate sitting. This is the worst. Give me something to focus on. What do you mean I need to relax? And like, it's almost panicking. The mind's panicking because it doesn't know how to come to ease. And sometimes it's really easy, right? Sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm just going to drop in right here. See you guys later. Like I'm checked out. But it's such a beautiful practice to just practice like accepting all of it and getting to that place where you can just kind of be with, like I find that there's so much clarity in slowing down. Yeah. There's not so much like incessant nature.
Yeah. And the noise of, like you said, of like needing to constantly do something I like the visual of like coming and going, of like
Mm,
it's this cycle. Like when I think of, when I think of meditation, sometimes I think of that, of like I'll sit there and I'll have maybe a moment of peace, and then
mm,
a barrage of like memories and flashbacks and things to do, and
mm.
like little to-do lists, and then I drift off somewhere into the ether, and then I have to like yank myself back a little bit, and then I stay for a little while, and then I go off again. And this like coming back is, I think, what has kind of helped my practice not be so, I guess, for me not to be so hard on myself to like maintain a certain discipline of like,
Right,
well, in 30 minutes I felt like I didn't really meditate that long because I kept, going off tangent. But now it's like if I came back, then that means something, right? If I return to it, that means
right,
something, more so than if I tried it and then went off and never came back, because now I feel so much guilt for not having this, like, I don't know, this consistency, you know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It makes me think of a couple of things. One, and I think it's, is it Deskachar? In one of his books, he talks about how, you know, we think that if we can sustain the mind being empty, we've done a good job.
Mm,
But that the points of like enlightenment, like of that spaciousness, they happen spontaneously throughout the day. Right. And so there's so much pressure to get it right culturally. There's
yeah.
so much pressure to get it right. And I think there's so many things I want to say on this topic. I think there's two different kind of schools of philosophy, right? We've got this school of philosophy. I'm going to use yoga as the example just because it talks about meditation, but like you've got the 8 limbs,
Hmm.
which, some people are like, oh, it's like climbing a ladder. It's like a tree, But really, the intention of yoga is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the stilling of the mind.
Yeah.
And the whole point of the practice is concentration, meditation, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, right? Like that's the whole point. That's where we're
Yeah.
going, is to
Yeah.
this emptiness. But the catch is that we're all living in these modern lives.
Mm.
Like emptiness feels impossible. We're so overstimulated constantly. I was teaching even yesterday and I was like, just imagine you're sitting with your back against a tree and you can feel everybody goes, you know? Um, and then the other part I wanted to say there was like, this is where I love tantric philosophy, where it's like, you're already enlightened. You just forgot. You just got to kind of take off the illusion
Yeah.
and you've already arrived. So then there's less pressure of like your mind needs to be empty and are you concentrating well enough? And that's not to say that training the mind isn't good. It's
Yeah.
just to really come into that acceptance of all of it.
Yeah. I
That's
found
all of
that.
it.
Yes, I found that
Yeah,
to be probably the hardest piece of it, is the acceptance, I think,
of
of
course.
it won't always be this pleasant experience. Sometimes you will drop into something and there's just this emotion or memory or feeling or sensation, and it's just like pawing at you to see it and make space for it, and that can be scary and it can be off-putting. Some
Mm,
people are like, oh
yeah,
well, here's all these baggage things that I thought that I don't want to sit with that. I don't want to like close my eyes and have
yeah.
that around me. But sometimes it wants to. And so that has been an ongoing thing. I love that you mentioned the spiral at the beginning, because I had an experience last year that I remember I went to the beach and I was
Mm,
like, I'm gonna journal. And I was like, I feel like I'm constantly coming back to like the, same point A. Like I feel like I'm not
mm,
moving, I'm just moving in circles. And, I was journaling about that and I was kind of holding space. And this random guy comes out of nowhere on his bike and he looks at me and he goes, do you feel that? And I was like, what? And he goes, do you feel the deja vu? And I was like, no. And I was like, okay, it's just some guy, it's some guy in LA. It's a typical random thing to say. I let him go off on his little journey. And as I sat there and I remember I flipped through some pages of my journal and I was like, I am exactly where I was last year, had that same thought
probably went somewhere to journal and reflect on it, had that same thought that I'm not moving, but then I listed all these things that have happened since then
Mm,
to kind of give myself like evidence that things have progressed and things have changed.
mm,
So it made me think of this spiral, we're constantly thinking of life maybe in some linear way, but that spiral of like, even though you might feel like you're coming back around, you're not coming back with the same eyes. You're not coming back with the
1,000%.
same mentality. There's something
Yeah.
different about arriving back at that same spot.
Yeah. Well, and I have two things I want to say. The quicker one is that I just love that you had some random guy ride up to you and be like, "Can you feel the deja vu?" That's
Yeah.
like breadcrumbs to the universe to me, you know? I'm just like, amazing.
Yes.
Um, but the quick thing I wanted to say is it's demonstrative of our lack of celebrating what's going well.
Mm,
We all are striving so hard that we're never like, look at all the things I did.
yeah.
Look at how amazing I am. You're just like, still haven't gotten this, still haven't gotten this, still haven't gotten this, still haven't gotten this. So
Yeah.
that's like a training you have to put yourself into, is this act of celebration. I mean, and there's like lots of journals you can get now, or like what's a day timer? That it dates me a little bit, but like a um like a weekly planner, and you write down like what I accomplished this week.
Yes.
It's important. But the
Absolutely.
second piece that I love that you brought up is this: whenever you come back around to anything, you're always coming back as a different
Mm,
version of yourself. And, this reminds me of something. I had a therapist once. And she was like, it's not like you're going to do enough therapy to erase what's happening in the past. And I was shocked by this.
mm.
Okay. I was like, what do you mean? I just thought we were going to get this down to zero. That was going to have no effect on who I am. And she's like,
Yeah.
no, we're just going to get it down to the point where
Yeah.
you can live with it. And so I think about that so much in this analogy. It's like, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of talking about trauma, but we have these events or these things we're trying to fix or what we're trying to work through or whatever it is.
Mm,
And we're like, God, how did it get here again? Didn't I figure it out yet? And it's like, well, you did. You just kind of like peeled back a layer and now you're revisiting so that you can reassess and peel back another layer. And
mm.
we can either choose to see that as incredibly beautiful or choose to see it as a pain in the ass. I mean, the invitation is go for incredibly beautiful, you know? And I think the other thing I'm reminded of is there's so much pressure for life to be good and joyful and happy. And, life is not all those things all the time. And part of the human experience is that it's excruciating and painful. And God, we get so hurt and we feel so deeply and we love so hard. And um, again, like the tantric philosophy of like, we just got to ride that wave
Mm.
and receive all of it and try not to turn our back on ourselves while we're doing it. Like, you don't want to turn away because it's too ugly or it hurts too bad. I
Yeah.
mean, okay, like obviously there's times where we turn away and it hurts too bad and we're protecting ourselves, and caveat star, star, star. But the point is that we want to be able to hold all of it with like this loving embrace
Mm.
for all of us, right? Like, I want to hold all those things in you and you want to hold all those things in me, and that's like what's exquisite about being human. It's tragic and triumphant and wonderful and terrible, and
Yeah.
you just got to be here for all of it, crazy
Yeah.
mind or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's such a simple concept. And
Right.
I've noticed it a lot in, I've been working with high school kids, and
Mm.
hard for adults, let alone for kids, to like really wrap their brain around the fact that,
Yeah.
it does involve a lot of the opposite of like that joy and
Mm.
that happiness and that positivity. And
Mm.
I mean, we've talked about this in the thing in the past of like the the rampant desire to be positive all the time is so it, I think it's getting a little bit better in the sense of like becoming more authentic in the fact that sometimes you're not happy and you're not okay, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But I think still there's like filaments of like that, of that desire. And for kids, when they're exposed to social media, and not to get on like my old person train on social, but I mean it's true, but because like even I see these curated things that are like, get ready with me, a day in the life, and it's just this like such a peaceful, beautiful, perfect 9 to 5,
Right.
and then you're like, well, I want to go and buy a million like fridge organizers and go like color code the cans in my fridge so that it's aesthetically pleasing. You get into that, like you get sucked into that vortex that you were saying about like
Mm.
me needing to maintain that positivity at all cost, and it desensitizes you to the fact that how much anger and frustration and tension do I have in my body as a result of maintaining this impossibly to maintain thing.
Right. And I think, gosh, I think it's so true that there's been, like, when I'm reminded of while you're talking. So we're talking right after TikTok was banned for 5 minutes and then came back on. And it was banned for 5 minutes. And right before the ban, all these people were like, this is all a facade. It's total BS. And I'm famous off of nothing. And then TikTok came back on and it's like, so now what are you going to post? But I think all these things play into, if I organize my fridge, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
If my house is perfect and aesthetically pleasing, then I'll be happy. If I wear these clothes, then I'll be happy. If I look this way, then I'll be happy. I won't have to deal with what is inside of me, Gosh, and I don't know how we get away from that. Like, I think before social media, I think about 50s housewives and having to maintain a house all the time and cook a certain way and having all these restrictions about how things were going to be. And of course, men had restrictions too and expectations too. But and again, like just a facade. And then behind that, you hear about all the barbiturate abuse and amphetamine abuse that was happening. And like that America had to have an ad at 10 o'clock on the TV that was like, do you know where your children are? It's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
So it's actually like there's some longevity to if this, then that.
Mm-hmm.
And it not being true or accurate. And so how do we come home to ourselves?
Yeah.
And I do think, like, to go back to the beginning of the conversation, I think this is in the slowdown.
Mm-hmm. I was just
right?
gonna say yes.
Yeah. So in the slowdown, it's like you're not in the hurricane, you're in the center of the hurricane. And so then you have a different perspective and kind of can see the chaos that's surrounding you. And the thing that comes to mind there, though, too, is, of course, we're also talking about value system beliefs, right? Like my value system dictates that I want to have a peaceful life. I choose peace. I choose no anxiety over my dishes need to be done. My dinner dishes need to be done before I go to bed at night, even though I've been out till 9 doing practices. I've been up till 4 and I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, nope, my dishes have to be done. I have sacrificed the dishes. Okay. She prioritizes sleep. If the job is going to be much faster in the morning because I'm alert, awake, and aware, is anyone going to die if the kitchen's not clean? Absolutely not. But my point there is that we, in order to kind of, you have to inquire about what your personal rules are.
Yes.
And how, it's all conditioning, right? You believe what you believe because you're conditioned to do so. And you don't know any different until you question it.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes like, what causes us to question? You know? And I have a group that I'm leading through a little, it's called the Reclamation. And we're in this phase one, this module one of the awakening to the illusion. And it is about this. It's like, what do you believe to be true? And then why do you believe that? But it's really hard to come to this place of questioning if you don't have the opportunity to slow down. And that also reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, it's like all fun and games to have this like great, deep spiritual life, but it's really hard if you don't have food or safety or a roof over your head. You know, I say that and then I got this hit. It's like, well, that could make you almost more deeply spiritual because you're connected to something else entirely. So I want to put that in the center, but it's very privileged to be able to contemplate the meaning of life and slowing down the mind and let's all be more peaceful and uncondition ourselves, you know? So I want to just put that in the center too.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's a big thing. Because it's, you know, that's something that you have to put it in the center because it can be a make it or break it for someone. And I like what you said about when you were bringing it up, the idea of it being almost like an unraveling is what I think of. You're asking that question of like, what actually matters to you? What do you value? And why do you matter that? Do you even know why you matter it? Why that matters to you? And like it, to me, you know, I remember asking, well, I still ask myself that, but I think of when I first initiated that, it was very much like an unraveling because now, to me, at least in my own personal life, I think of all the value systems and rules that were made for me or that were made in just this assumption that I would somehow comply. And then I did comply and have continued to comply. And then for some, you might arrive at a realization that like, there's very little things that I understand that I value because it's always been placed with other people or within someone else's overarching value system. Like, I don't know who I am outside of these specific roles. I remember once when we were in our training, in our medicine wheel training, and you asked the question, it was, who are you without all these like roles of how you identify? And I loved asking that question because it brought up a lot of like, I don't know, you know, and then having to sit with that, like, what does that feel like? And what could I be, you know, if I was given the permission, if I gave myself that permission, or if I enjoyed that space, or even if I like dipped my toe in, and what does that look like? So it does feel like an unraveling because I think some people think of it, it can be very, you know, I would hope that it would get to a point where it is very empowering and very bountiful. But I think there are periods where it does feel kind of scary and kind of almost a little empty, you know?
Yeah, of course. And I think you make such a good point about like what brings us to this questioning. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot because so, you know, we talk about like in spiritual circles or yoga or whatever, you know, that change only happens when you're up against the edge. So when you're comfortable, nothing changes because nothing needs to change. And man, I'll tell you, I think about this a lot. And I really want to challenge that belief. I think it's very patriarchal and very masculine that we only change when we're pushed up against the edge, because change can be so beautiful, so gracious. And so, like, what begins the unraveling? And it could be something as simple as a question, but it does often start with something doesn't feel good, right? And I do think it starts with something doesn't feel good. And I like this pulling of a thread because I think about like a sweater, like you're wearing like a knit sweater with like rainbows or whatever, you know, like variegated wool. And like we weave this cloak through, I mean, we're given stories about who we are, rules from our family, rules from society, expectations, how to behave in a classroom, how to behave at work, how to write an email, like all these things. And that's not to say those are bad things. We live together. Like, you can't be like, oh, nice red light, I don't feel like complying, I'm just going to drive through it. So, you know, we need to live together in society.
Yeah.
But at some point, we've either taken something that someone said something about us and made it mean something about us and woven that into our cloak, or said something about ourselves and woven that into the cloak. And often these are like from when you're 3, from when you're 8, from when you're 13, from when you're 25, like they're not current.
Yeah.
And so it's not bad, but there's like such an incredible opportunity there to be like, is that true? So here's such a great example. Okay, I'm 46. And when I grew up and my dad was like, I don't want you to do psychology. You got to go do hard science, whatever, right? That was his big story. And then he died in 1995. So at that time I was like 16. And I can't remember. It's like 16-ish. And I was in chemistry, grade 11. Okay, so I might have been 16. Yeah. Grade 11 chemistry class. And this was like after my dad died. And I just had this realization the other day. So I was in chemistry 11. And I remember the teacher looking at me being like, are you stupid or something? And like, I have a crazy GPA, like crazy super smart kid, right?
Yeah.
Crazy super smart. But I just couldn't understand chemistry. Anyways, and that made me not go into science in university, which is interesting. And just recently I had the realization, I was like, my brain wasn't working because my dad died and I was traumatized. We didn't talk about that in the 90s, right? We weren't having those discussions. Of course I couldn't do chemistry. I like had totally evacuated my system, you know? But I didn't realize that till I was like 46 years old, you know? And now I'm like, oh, I am super smart. And I probably would have been really amazing at science. So it doesn't have, we're not talking like big T trauma even necessarily, just these little things. Or like, you know, we're talking about laundry the other day and everybody's at a different laundry process. Okay. And my laundry process is like, you fold those clothes as soon as they're done in the dryer, because I can still remember my mom being like, you do not fold wrinkled clothes. Yes. And you fold them very specifically and the towels have to go in the closet a certain way. So like, she's wild about the laundry. Now, I don't put everybody's laundry away, but I'll fold it and I'll put it in your pile and then I'll deliver it to your room and you can put it away. Yeah. Other people are like, I just do the loads and then they sit in the basket. And like, I have a visceral feeling to clean laundry sitting in a basket unfolded. I'm like, oh my God, the wrinkles in the t-shirts. But again, like, it's not good or bad. It just is what I learned. And so but unless you bring that to conscious awareness, you don't have choice around it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So then it's like, well, I choose. I mean, she be choosing some wrinkle-free laundry. This girl, I'm like, if you need to be ironed, you do not belong in my household. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like, absolutely not. So we're a wrinkle-free house and we fold right after. But I use those kind of things as examples of like, why do you believe these things to be true? Why do you believe that the dishes need to be done before you go to bed, or you need to wake up at a certain time, or you need to drink so much water through the day, or like you have so many rules about how you're living? Yeah. And a lot of it is noise.
Yeah.
So much noise. So no wonder you can't sit and be quiet with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're just like cloaked in all these shoulds, you know?
Yeah.
And when you do get quiet, kind of take off the cloak, it's like quite freeing, actually. Mm-hmm. You know?
God, the laundry thing, I can sing visceral.
It's not funny.
Sometimes I wonder, and I'm like, I wonder what life would be like if I could just let it sit in the basket. Would I
Mm.
like disintegrate? Would I just go up in flames? Would I just be crippled with anxiety the moment that
Mhm.
so I find that to be fascinating because there is an element of there's an element of control in all of this of like I have
1000%.
yeah, I have control over the way that I manipulate things, the rules that I have. I think you bring up a point of, that's not a bad thing, but can we talk about the discussion of, well, is that something that's your voice, or is it, like you said, like my mom's
Mm.
voice, my dad's voice, or someone else's voice that just keeps replicating that rule? Something else that I think of, like just in the art of slowing down, something I've been resonating a lot with lately is just kind of like seasonal alignment of
Oh.
uh,
Mhm.
like, January 1st hit. And for the first time in a long time, I was like, this is fine. Everything's fine. I don't have to have this like 365-day outline of everything, every single thing that I do all the time, and it's going to be perfect. There's just like this less of a desire for control, more of a desire of, if I look outside and I notice that it's still winter and it's still slow and calm
Mm.
and like closed in a way, like kind of hunkering down. And if I
Yeah.
take 25 naps today, that's okay. So
Yeah.
like that seasonal alignment has been such a blessing because now I don't feel like I have to rush. And I think it's getting traction with people to maybe take that on, but I think
Mm.
we're still like pushing past the red tape of like New Year's resolutions and needing to hit the ground running and this like super energized pace for a month that's still so not full of energy at all.
Not even sort of, kind of, or maybe. And we're just at the beginning of winter. Winter starts December 21st.
Right.
So it's funny. I just recorded a whole bunch of content for my friend's app and it was all spring based.
Yeah.
And I love that you bring this up because I was doing some research because everybody is like, I don't know anybody who's like, yep, January 1st, this is the best time to be making New Year's resolutions. Like, yes. I mean, of course, that's inside of all of us. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this calendar is only 200 years old. This is not traditionally
No.
across cross culturally across time and space when we're celebrating the new year.
Right.
It is new and it is physically uncomfortable. And from an astrological perspective,
Oh my God. I was just
I'm
going to
not
say that.
super, yeah, I'm not super astro. I mean, I'm pretty astro techno, but like over the years, I have tracked two things to be true for myself.
Mhm.
One, there's so much retrograde happening in January. It's a crazy time to expect anything to happen.
Yeah.
And two, Lunar New Year, man.
Yes.
Lunar New Year. Right? So it starts next week at this time and space of this recording. And you can start to feel like, oh, I've just recovered from Christmas. And now I can start to feel, oh, I've had a month to like figure my life out and come back to life, And so you can start to feel the energy rising in the body. But I do want to talk about the beauty of the void. I mean, winter is amazing. And this is also the art of slowing down. So winter is yin, it's feminine, it's dark, it's receptive, it's the void. It's like the place where you're in possibility. I mean, anything's possible here.
Yeah.
And I think this is the beauty of slowing down. And the beauty of getting quiet and silent is you come back into yourself, into the void. And so spring is really this time of emergence. I think our mutual friend, Chris Miller, he always talked about like the spring, he's TCM guy. So the spring is the seed and the energy of spring is anger. And that's what pushes the seed to sprout and go up through the soil out towards the sun. So like to really drop into the season and be a part of the natural world, so potent.
Yes.
So potent. And guess what? Animals aren't like running around frantically all the time. Even the prey. Their energy is high. Yes. They move quickly. Yes. That's the nature of prey. But they also rest. Right? The bears are sleeping all winter long. The human beings do not need to be running around and racing all over the place all the time, thinking that they're not doing enough. thinking that they're not being enough, thinking that they should be doing more just so they find joy. You know, there's like it's kind of a madness in that a little bit. So I love that you brought up that seasonality. And I always tell people, eat what is in season where you live. So like you live in LA, you can eat whatever you want. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. The vegetable that grows in the winter is kale. Okay. So unless you're eating root veggies, it's kale, baby, all the way. Like soups and like, yams and potatoes and stuff like that. But it's, well, potatoes really are summer vegetables, but things you can store, apples, pears, things like that. It ain't strawberries and blueberries, kids. That's not winter food.
Which God knows I have in my fridge, and that's
you're in a hot place.
Yes, and the thing that I miss the most really are like a tangible season. Like that transition is just so fewer and fewer every year. Like the essence of the transition is so it's like a whisper, and then it's gone. And so I love winter, and as a winter baby, I used to hate, having my birthday in winter. I was like, oh, this sucks. This is the worst. I can't. But like, I guess as we get older, we have we somehow get like a newfound appreciation for, like you said, being it more of that like dark place. And I love that now more than before, because there's so much, like you said, that feminine aspect of like reflection and what comes out in the dark, and meeting yourself in those parts that you would rather maybe discard or ignore or not pay attention to. And now there's more of like a beckoning to those parts of ourselves. And I think winter does a really beautiful job. You can be in the light all day long. We all know how to be in that. But there's something about the dark that I think a lot of us try to escape. And so no wonder there's seasonal depression and, wanting to constantly be in that light. There's something to be said about holding on to the dark, and winter's a potent time for that. And, I also, not that I'm an astrologer, but I love following it. And to your point, there are a lot of retrogrades, and I love the idea that there's a buffer, because the astrological new year isn't until like end of March, like Aries season, April-ish. And so the wheel doesn't begin again until Aries. And I love that, because now there's still like this reflection time of, we're now in Aquarius, and there's still Pisces to go. And so there's still time to rest and recover and see what else lands. And we don't have to have anything figured out. Of course, that's difficult when you place it in the context of work and other metrics that you have to, measure up to. But there are possibilities of like implementing more of that in your daily practice, whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love that. So Aries season is March 21st. It's spring equinox. That's when it starts. So you're right. It is the beginning of the wheel of the year. And it's also the beginning of the astrological year, for sure. Yeah. And I love your piece around implementation, because it's so easy to talk about all this philosophical, like, oh yeah, we should do all these things. It'll be so marvelous. I'll just add it to my should list.
Yeah.
Girl, that should list is so long. Like I should, you know what I mean? I should be looking at my should list. I think meditation scares a lot of people. And I get it. What I tell everybody, two things, and I thought about this earlier too. Like one, meditation is not about getting the mind to be silent. And if you want to practice meditating, do a led meditation. Don't just sit there in emptiness. You'll go crazy. I would go crazy.
Yeah.
I love listening. And then you're giving the mind a task. So it's focusing. So you're practicing concentration. And this is important. Like, so I read a lot of books on Audible, okay? Because that's the only way I could ever read. And people ask me, like, how can you listen to Audible while you're doing other things? And I was like, that's a good question. But I think it's this piece around listening to led meditations for so long.
Yeah.
Like there is this capacity to concentrate, and it does train the mind. So, there's so many apps now, Insight Timer and all sorts of stuff that you can get on, Headspace and like just
Yeah.
listening to your breath, whatever. But I mean, even more basic than that, like what if when you were at a stoplight, you wiggled your toes and just felt your feet in your shoes,
Mm.
or like made sure your spine was nice and straight and just got embodied in the moment and we're like took 5 breaths, like just not like, okay, now I'm going here, then I'm going here, then this other thing is happening, then this other thing is happening. And we're just constantly living in anticipation.
Mm.
And so I think presence helps us not be in anticipation. And presence is available anytime, any place. Like one of the things I try and do, like if I'm in a Starbucks, for example, I'm getting coffee, I don't look at my phone.
Oh yeah.
I just stand there.
Do you feel
like a
awkward?
crazy person?
Right. I think I've done that in the past of like, I just don't feel like grabbing my phone out of my bag.
Mm.
And you look around and you realize how alone you are in the fact that no one else is looking around.
Mm.
And you are the only one, like a peasant, not looking at your phone.
Yeah. I mean, this is, you could do this if you wanted to, meaning you, the proverbial you, but I will stand in public spaces and think about projecting love out of my heart, like while I'm in the grocery lineup or like just getting really present and thinking, I'm going to date myself again. Do you remember Care Bears?
Yes.
And there was the Care Bear, Tender Heart Bear, maybe was his name. And he just like would send hearts out. So I genuinely, I mean, I do it as a light, but it reminds me of that. And I just like kind of stand present and like just send it out, man. And just get with my breath. Yeah. So the point is you don't have to be doing that if that doesn't resonate or whatever, but just practicing presence slows everything down. Mm. And then trusting that there's no perfection in it. Like I still get up. I'm talking like, oh yeah, I got it all figured out. Like I have 3 planners. Okay. Cause that's how much she likes to write her stuff down. I got one for astrology, one for the daily. And then I have my whole week plus my Google calendar because she's wild, she's wild, but it makes me feel good. So I do it that way. Yeah. So you can have all that and not pick up your phone in the Starbucks or wiggle your toes in the car. And then I think the other thing is break your rules a little bit.
Oh yeah. I like
See what rules you have and break your rules.
Yeah. And then sitting with what that feels like and what that brings up. And obviously not doing it to an extent where you're like, I'm going to break it until I'm in like full blown, manic episode or something. But to a point where you're like, you are kind of testing that edge and that boundary a little bit.
Well, and why the anxiety? Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I just remember I was thinking when we were talking about the laundry, I choose that one. I like nice laundry, but like I used to use a clothespin on my toothpaste to stop my husband from squeezing the toothpaste tube in the middle because it made me insane.
Oh, I love that one.
And I was like, this was when I was like in a much higher anxiety state than I am now. And it was anxiety is about control, right? Yeah. You're trying to control the environment to change your internal state. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that. But get curious. I mean, it's painful for people, so I don't want to be flippant about that, but get curious about that. Mm-hmm. Because it ain't about squeezing the toothpaste in the middle. Yeah. It's just not. Yeah. Or have kids. That'll that'll just cure all of that for you. You'll be like, oh, well, wheels are off the bus now. There's nothing I can do.
That is true. That is absolutely true. I have a lot of respect for parents who are, like you're holding your own sort of container and then you're also exposed to little humans who are testing and pushing those boundaries in ways that you're like, I didn't really consent to this, but it's happening.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. But no, this was such an amazing conversation as always. Um
Oh, thank
I
you so
wanna
much.
it was, I mean, we could go on forever in a day.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of bring it back to, is there anything that you want to kind of leave people with in terms of, either you mentioned a little bit, a practice, a
Mm.
reminder, something to kind of plant a seed, hopefully, and then share, where folks can find you and connect with you if they want.
Mm. Yeah, I think the thing I want to share is that my greatest wish is that people find peace.
Mm,
And that doesn't mean being happy all the time.
mm,
Much to the point about the therapist, we just learn to live with ourselves. And sometimes it's chaotic and painful, and sometimes it's incredible. And we really just want to like hold all of it,
mm.
you know? Um, yeah, so invite yourself to hold it. And the breath really helps. And when you find an edge that starts to get uncomfortable, don't force yourself. Your body has your whole lifetime woven into it, right? Just like we said. And there's some edges that need time. So you dip your toe in, you take a few breaths, and you can come back out if you need. You don't need to like go into the body with a backhoe and start excavating, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, gosh, be loving to yourself and to others. I think that's, yeah, and the gateway's the breath. I think the best practice that's easy is that box breath.
Mhm.
Inhale for 4, pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4. If you're growing a baby, don't pause your breath. And if it doesn't feel good, don't pause your breath. It can feel a bit panicky, but that kind of just counting your breath gives the mind a job
Yeah.
and starts to, I mean, just the biological reaction, right? You're just regulating the nervous system
Yeah.
and it gives you a moment to land. Yeah. And I'm on the internet, so you can come see me. My website is Cindy E. Stockdale, and that's my handle on Instagram too. And I
Yeah.
love sharing all the things all the time.
Yes, yes, I will be sure to link all of that so folks can
Awesome.
see, find it. But yeah, I love it's a perfect ending to to find a way to land, because I think that's kind of what this period is all about, is just slowly starting to land and kind of shake off a little bit of, but at the same time understanding that you might like turn over and go back to sleep for a little bit longer, or continue that rest, and that's okay too. And I'm finding that that's been really nurturing for winter and January, and just anytime we're feeling anxious. But this is a good reminder.
Yeah, I 10 out of 10 recommend rest whenever you need. Rest is great rebellion in this culture that prides itself on chaos and busyness.
Yeah.
Take naps, man. It'll change your life. I sleep while my kids are at practice. No joke, in the car, like 10 minutes. I'm just like, okay, yeah, you deserve it.
I love it. Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you so much. It's so good to see
Appreciate
you.
it.
Always such a
Yes.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.